Well, I guess we'll get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Trude Hughes Gonzalez. I am a budget analyst with the City of San Diego. And today I have the honor of introducing today's speaker, Kerry Bigelow. And today's conference is about boards and commissions. The time of the duration is from 10 to 12. And Kerry is from the city of Chula Vista. Continuous improvement and process streamlining has been a constant theme throughout Kerry's professional career. Kerry began working for the city of Chula Vista in 2004 and has been involved in local government for over 25 years, serving in a variety of capacities, including volunteer, commissioner, and full-time employee. Before beginning at the city of Chula Vista, she was a software process improvement analyst for a large insurance company for more than 6 years. Kerry holds a bachelor's degree in business and a master's degree in public administration with additional graduate coursework in nonprofit leadership. She has been designated a Master Municipal Clerk by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. The session description: this workshop offers a comprehensive instruction in boards and commissions that will allow the learner to understand the critical functions, the various types of boards and commissions, the application and onboarding process for members, records management, and how to train commissioners, all with an emphasis on best practices and legal requirements. Thank you so much, Kerry. Please take it away.
Thank you, Trude, and good morning, everyone. That was a very nice introduction. It makes me feel very important. In real life, I'm just a regular person, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions at any point. Trude, I met Trude, I don't know how long ago, a number of years ago. She's our city just to the north of Chula Vista, and she came in to work in our office as a volunteer on her days off from City of San Diego. So we got a good chance to know each other, and I really appreciate you being here, and I'm glad you're able to introduce me. Thank you, Trude. So as Trude said, I'm Kerry Bigelow. I'm the city clerk of the City of Chula Vista. Boards and commissions hold a really special place in my heart. That's where I started my public service. That's why I've been in public service for 20 plus years. I started as a youth advisory commissioner for my hometown and served there for 7 years. That was when I was 13. Maybe when I was 5, if we're talking about 20 plus years. As an adult, I was appointed to my city's personnel board, and I served there for a couple of terms before I moved. And then from a staff perspective, I've worked throughout my 16 years at the City of Chula Vista in a staff capacity to several different commissions. My first job here at the city was with a nature center that we had, and I was the secretary to the Nature Center's Board of Trustees, which was a commission of the city. I also served as secretary to our Civil Service Commission, and now I serve as the staff to our Redistricting Commission. So I have a bit of experience seeing how commissions work from the inside and how they interact with the city and with other commissions. So beginning with the end in mind, what I'd like for you to get out of today's sessions are some practical tools and ideas to manage your boards and commissions and to make life easier. I'm all about making life easier. That's where the process improvement piece comes in. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later. Boards and commissions is a gigantic subject. So I've tried to balance providing a high-level overview of some of the main parts of boards and commissions, and then also giving you actual tools and tips that you can take back to your agency. I understand CCAC is working on getting the presentation posted on the Clerk's Rock page, webpage. And in addition to the presentation, there's also 15 handouts that I have, which I'll talk about throughout the presentation. If there are any specific areas of boards and commissions that you'd really like to see covered in more details, I know CCAC is always open to hearing from members of what you want to hear. So you feel free to reach out to April Souza or reach out to me and let us know what you'd like to hear more about. Oops, sorry about that. So jumping into boards and commissions, there's really no one best way to organize boards and commissions and administer them. The procedural organization for advisory boards in a larger jurisdiction may be more comprehensive and complex than what would be required for a smaller jurisdiction. To kind of give you some perspective, Chula Vista, our population is about 260,000. So we're not a gigantic city, but we're not a small city either. So this is kind of the middle ground for boards and commissions is what you'll hear the specific examples from here. So they may be appropriate for your organization. They may need to be scaled down. They may need to be scaled up. So you'll want to keep that in mind. Throughout the presentation, I'll be asking you how you approach certain aspects of managing boards and commissions. A lot of what I have in here and what I've learned from other clerks. So we definitely have a lot to learn from each other. And I'm always looking for more information about how we can improve our boards and commissions. And I know that your fellow clerks are interested in hearing from you as well. So please feel free also to put any questions that you might have in the chat. I see Anthony just dropped in the session presentation in the chat, so you can pull that out if you would like to follow along on the PowerPoint or save that for future reference. If I missed your questions, please feel free to post them again. I'll try and keep an eye on those as we go throughout the session. If we run out of time to get to all of the questions, I'll definitely follow up with you afterwards, or feel free if something comes to mind to check in with me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have after the session. So our agenda for today, we'll first talk about boards and commissions, kind of an overview and structure, which includes the role and the types of boards and commissions, different appointment types, term limits. We'll talk about some policies and procedures regarding membership, qualifications, recruitment, onboarding, vacancies. We'll talk about required training and managing absences. In organization and support of boards and commissions, we'll talk some about bylaws and rules of procedure, about subcommittees, and about resources for staff who work with boards and commissions. And then at the end, I'll provide you with some additional resources that I've found really helpful that may help you in administering your boards and commissions. So let's jump in with board and commission overview and structure. So ideally, advisory boards bring together residents' views that might not otherwise be heard. They're typically made up of people with wide-ranging interests and expertise who want to participate in public service. And as many of us know, participation on an advisory board may serve as a training ground or a stepping stone for people who are interested in seeking public office. On our city council, our mayor, I believe, started out on our personnel board, and I think 4 of our 5 members on our city council were on a city board or commission at one time. More specifically, advisory bodies can provide assistance to the legislative body when the body is forming public policy. So that could be your city council or the equivalent of your city council in your agency. They address issues of interest or conduct background work on technical or politically sensitive issues. It serves as a way to build public consensus on controversial issues before elected officials come into the equation to make a decision. And it gives the community a forum to discuss in greater depth than would be possible in front of the city council. So the commissions, because they have ongoing meetings, they can meet and talk with the community and get more input than the community could provide in their 3 minutes or their 5 minutes that they get in public comment. An example in Chula Vista is a few years ago, we set our city goals, which included supporting healthy communities, strong and secure neighborhoods, and connected communities. And so to support reaching those goals, the city decided to form a human relations commission, which was tasked with providing recommendations and advice to the city council on rights of all residents and improving interrelationships between various groups. So those are groups based on religion, based on race, based on color, ancestry, socioeconomic, age, military status, marital status, disability. And one of the issues that the Human Relations Commission has recently taken up is automated license plate readers. The city has an automated license plate reader program where 4 of our police cars are equipped with video cameras that take license plates, and they're used by a lot of different agencies, but there's some very, very passionate views on both sides of that issue. From the police department's perspective, this is used as a tool to fight crime while we're dealing with, lower numbers of officers on the streets. This is a way that we can use technology to, find perpetrators by having their license plates in systems and sharing that data with other agencies. Particularly on the immigrant community, there's some real concerns about being surveilled, about having their license plates out for the police to share with other government agencies. And so it's a very passionate topic. The Human Relations Commission was able to discuss this issue at several of their meetings and were involved with the community members, gathering input from people that they know, encouraging people that they know to come show up to the meetings and provide input. The HRC came up with a list of questions for the city to answer about the program based on a lot of the feedback that they heard from the community. And that was some really great groundwork that the HRC did so that the issue could then be brought to the city council, and the council would have the benefit of that work that had already been conducted, where, the commission was able to dedicate whole meetings to discussing this topic and having people come in. So whether the council and the Human Relations Commission had the same view on the issue is a different matter, but the point is that more voices were able to be heard than if staff had just brought it forward to city council without having gone through the Human Relations Commission. So before we move on, I do want to point out that there's little uniformity in the way that we all use the terms commission, committee, board. In some agencies, those have specific meanings. In other agencies, they're all the same. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to use them interchangeably. We don't have definitions on exactly what boards, commissions, and committees individually are. So you'll hear me referring to those throughout the presentation, and you can just assume that those terms are being used interchangeably. So let's talk for a minute about authority for boards and commissions. There's 2 basic authorities. There's your advisory commissions, and then there's your commissions who have the ability to make final decisions. So advisory commissions are formed to provide advice to the primary legislative body, your city council or the equivalent, and to provide ongoing input into policies and issues that are affecting the agency. For example, we have a sustainability commission. The sustainability commission consists of people who are interested and passionate about environmental issues, and they engage with the community, and then they provide the council with advice on areas of energy and water conservation, resource conservation, environmental sustainability, those types of issues. This particular commission does not make policies for the city on its own, but rather it gathers the information and presents it to the city council. On the other hand, some boards and commissions have decision-making authority where they are the ones who are making final decisions. And one that might be on the minds of many of us right now are independent redistricting commissions. So these commissions do make final decisions on matters, unlike advisory commissions. Of the decision-making boards, there's a subset of those that make quasi-judicial decisions. So quasi-judicial decisions is not only a tongue twister, but it's also sometimes referred to as adjudicative or administrative decisions. So in a lot of our agencies, that the Planning Commission may make quasi-judicial decisions about zoning permits or variances. And when they're making those types of decisions, the commission is acting as a court in a way by applying local land use regulations to a specific application. So although the process is a lot simpler than an actual court proceeding, But quasi-judicial proceedings are almost always involve public hearings. The commission is the decision maker, and they also oversee the process that has to satisfy certain standards for fairness. So you'll see your planning commission, just like city council, also sometimes makes quasi-judicial decisions. Public hearing is typically required for those. The decision makers have to be present to hear and receive all of the evidence. They have to avoid ex parte communications, which are communications outside of the meeting, because it's important that everyone presenting information, that everyone receives the same information. And then typically they also have to make findings, which is essentially the explanation of why legally and factually the decision was made. Boards and commissions are established by a variety of authorities. Sometimes it's a state statute, sometimes it's your city charter, sometimes it's an ordinance, a resolution, or some other formal action of a legislative body. State statutes authorize a number of advisory bodies for local government, but they don't generally specify how the body is created. So there's no uniform methodology for creating boards and commissions. Some legislative bodies create their permanent or standing advisory bodies by ordinance. Others do it by resolution or by a motion of the council. If you do have a body that is going to be a permanent in nature, you may want to consider adding that as an ordinance and codifying the legislation, because that provides easy reference for permanent advisory bodies. If you're just going to have a temporary advisory body, that level of authorization probably isn't required. Most of our, all of our standing boards and commissions, now I should say most because there's one that's not. Most of our standing boards and commissions, we have incorporated into our municipal code. And so changes to those require ordinances to be passed, but they are permanent legislative bodies. And so we felt that it was important to incorporate them by ordinance. The one that I was referring to was actually authorized by a resolution, and it is a standing meeting body. But it's always difficult to find that information because then we have to go look up the resolution and find out about the formation and more information about that particular commission. So let's talk a minute about the role and the function of boards and commissions. So what commissions do. So commissions are an ear for the council. They're a forum to encourage resident participation. They're provide in-depth analysis of specific issues. They have a broad perspective on focused topics. Their advisory recommendations to city council generally. Some do make binding commissions. So what boards and commissions don't do. They don't typically make policy decisions. They don't direct budget decisions. They don't direct city operations and programs, and they don't direct staff. This is a slide that I have in a presentation for our boards and commissions because, you know, these people are volunteers. They don't understand how the city runs and operates necessarily to the degree that a staff person would. And so it's important to point out and have everyone understand what their role and function is. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. And the person who came up with this may be on this call right now. So as I said, I've borrowed a lot and I learned a lot from City Clerk. So y'all are definitely great resources. It's really important to define the role and the function of a board and commission. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the presentation, but here's an example of the role and the function of our Chula Vista Healthy Advisory, our Healthy Chula Vista Advisory Commission. So we have here listed their purpose and intent: to create an advisory and coordinating body which serves as a resource to advise and make recommendations to the city council and the city manager on health-related policies and opportunities. And their functions are they serve as an advisory body. They periodically assess the health needs of residents of Chula Vista, review health-related policies and strategies, including general plan, Healthy Chula Vista Action Plan, to make recommendations to improve those plans. And they perform other duties or functions that may be delegated by the city council. So the reason that this is so important is so that everybody's on the same page as exactly what each board and commission is responsible for. When we get to talking about number and size of commissions, there's really no ideal number of boards and commissions that your agency should have. Some jurisdictions have a lot, others only have a few. The larger the community, generally, the greater the need is to involve more community members in your decision-making processes. Smaller communities may be able to effectively engage with their residents without as many. And while we, of course, want to foster civic participation, commissions, when they are created, they have to be manageable, they have to be adequately staffed, and they have to serve a useful purpose. It doesn't serve anyone to have a commission that doesn't meet or that meets just to approve their minutes and select a chairperson. So people who join boards and commissions want to have work that is useful to the organization. The number of board members that you want to put on a board or commission really depends on the duties, the responsibilities, and the membership requirements. A task force or a study commission might require more members than just a standing policy advisory group. So there should be a sufficient number of people to fulfill the charge of the board or commission and provide adequate representation of community interests. Size-wise, most commonly, commissions range from 5 to 9 members. In my experience, once you have more than 9 members, it becomes very difficult for staff to manage the commission and for the commission to really work together as a group. Commissions should also generally consist of an odd number of members, which avoids tie votes. And then as far as terms go, a lot of boards and commissions have 4-year terms. That may vary in different agencies. Some agencies have term limits, others don't. In Chula Vista, we have a limit of 2 consecutive terms, and then a commissioner or an individual will have to wait for 2 years before they are eligible to serve again on that same commission. Some agencies have 3-year term limits. Other agencies don't have any term limits. So this is a survey. I've done a number of surveys or pulled surveys that were conducted on the CCAC listserv. This particular one was done in 2017 and 84 people responded. Thank you very much. Probably a number of you who are on the call right now. So for a number of boards and commissions, you can see here that the vast majority have 5 to 10 boards or commissions for their city. That's 46%. 21% have 11 to 15 commissions, 26% have only up to 4 commissions, and then there's 6% who have 16 or more. So I want to hear from the outliers. So in the chat, if you feel like you have a lot of commissions or you feel like you have very few commissions, if you would put in the chat and let us know how many commissions you have, because I'm curious to see what we have on here. I have a lot of commissions, so we'll see if you beat me. Oh, 2. That's so nice. 8, 4, 20 plus, 2, more than 20. 2, just planning and community. Rebecca says 4. Monique says 15-ish. I should start saying that. We have 20-ish. Christina, same as me, right? Because we work together. 15, and then ad hocs and subcommittees. Deborah's saying this is a hot subject for us. They just finished revising their handbook because of the unclear role of their commissions and concern of nepotism. Council was pretty vague on the subject of what their responsibilities should be. If you have anything to share on nepotism, you'd be interested. Okay, I will talk a little bit later about defining appointment types and seats, so that may answer some of your questions, but feel free, Deborah, to reach out to me afterwards if it doesn't. Boards and commissions can be very hot topics in cities for a number of different reasons. 17 plus seems to grow every week. I'm with you, Kendall. Becky's asking if anyone has a handbook to share. The City of Gardena would be interested. As one of the attachments to this presentation, I have provided our handbook, but certainly it would be great to share. If you have a handbook that you want to share, if you'd like to send it my way, I'll be happy to consolidate all of those and make them available to everyone. So if you want to email it to me, let me put my email in here. If you want to email it to me, I'll combine them all and send them back out so everyone can have access to them. So we have 23 boards and commissions. I feel like that's a lot. Plus we had a referral just this last Tuesday to add another one. So we'll see how that goes. We may end up with 24 here pretty soon. So of our 23 boards and commissions, we have the regulars, we have our planning commission, we have a Parks and Recreation Commission, we have a redistricting commission that's formed just for redistricting purposes. We have a civil service commission that oversees our personnel. Some of you may call it a personnel board. We also have a charter review commission. Someone was just asking earlier, I think on the listserv, about revising their charter. And we have a charter review commission that meets regularly to review the city's charter and to provide any recommendations to the city council on changes for the city charter. And they're actually a pretty busy commission. They have a number of recommendations for our charter that are out right now that the council decided not to take up this last election cycle just because with COVID and the cost of the elections, it wasn't something that they were able to put on the ballot, but they are going to revisit it for the 2022 elections. We also, I mentioned earlier, our Healthy Chula Vista Advisory Commission. We have a Historic Preservation Commission. We have a Mobile Home Rent Review Commission that deals with rent disputes in mobile home parks. We have a Commission on Aging. We have a Cultural Arts Commission. So those are just a number of the commissions that we have in Chula Vista. It seems like every 10, 15 years, we go through a process of, can we consolidate commissions? What commissions can be combined with others? What ones do we no longer need? So sometimes we're able to consolidate one or two. We used to have a design review board, which would review designs that were going to the Planning Commission. And so that ended up being consolidated with the Planning Commission. And now we have certain seats on our Planning Commission that are required to have some kind of design experience. Bonnie Bush is asking, what department does your Board of Appeals fall under? That falls under our Development Services Department or our Planning Department. Is there a process or any mandates other than our own codes to disband a commission? Typically not. A lot of boards and commissions are formed by the agency itself. When it comes to a commission like the Planning Commission, there may be some state implications. So I'm not an attorney and I can't give you legal advice, but for the most part, it would be your own processes if you wanted to disband or change the structure of one of your boards and commissions. That's a great question. So moving on, when we're talking about qualifications and eligibility to serve, you have a number of options for qualifications. The first one we have here, residency, citizenship, voter registration status. In Chula Vista, most of our board and commission members are required to be residents of the city. We have one commission where our charter was actually amended to allow a regional representation where the member didn't actually have to be a resident of the city. And that was because they were providing certain expertise. It was actually someone from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. It was a seat that was dedicated to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so that individual didn't have to be a resident, but for the most part, our charter requires that members be residents. Most of them are also required to be registered voters or qualified electors is how we also refer to it, which there's been a lot of internal debate about exactly what a qualified elector means. But what we've landed on is it's someone who's qualified to register to vote, but they don't actually have to be registered to vote. We verify most of the qualifications based on the applicant signing the application under penalty of perjury, that they meet the requirements. There are some commissions like our redistricting commission where we do call and verify voter registration. But for the most part, we go by what the individual provides on their application. Kimberly's asking the population of Chula Vista and the number of council members we have. Our population is about 270,000, and we have a 5-member city council. The next set of variables is representation of specialized knowledge or interest groups. For example, as I had mentioned before, our planning commission was consolidated with our design review board. And so 3 of the 7 seats of our planning commission are the individuals who are qualified to sit have to have some kind of, they have to be sensitive to design considerations. And then they also have to be interested in townscape matters. So these could be architects, urban planners, civil engineers, or some of the examples. Cultural Arts Commission, all 9 of our members on our Cultural Arts Commission have to demonstrate competence, knowledge, and experience in cultural arts. And 6 of those have to be qualified professionals. So they have to be artists or educators or other professionals that have art qualifications, performing arts, fine arts, anything like that. Shelley's asking, what's the purpose of requiring commissioners to be registered voters? A lot of times that's used to ensure that the member who's sitting on that board or commission lives in your city. It's not a requirement in all cities. In our city, it's to ensure that they live within the city limits, because obviously our boards and commissions, we want to hear from our own community members. So we do, you know, a few times a year, we'll have someone apply who doesn't live in Chula Vista, but maybe they work here or they're close to someone who lives here. But our city boards and commissions are typically reserved just for residents of the city. Sandra's asking, how do you verify qualified elector? Great question. And that's part of the internal debate that we've had, is how do we verify if they're a qualified elector? And basically we do that based on them signing their application under penalty of perjury, saying that they would be qualified to register to vote. So the next variable here is ability to serve on multiple boards or commissions. So can members serve on multiple boards or commissions at the same time? In Chula Vista, most cannot serve on multiple boards at the same time unless they're a representative from one board serving on another board, which is what happens when you have 23 boards, is now you have these intermingling of boards to make sure that each of the boards knows what the other one is doing or what a related one is doing. So for example, we have one member of our planning commission who serves on our growth management oversight commission as a regular member on the GMOC as well. But for the most part, if someone's already serving on a board or commission, they want to serve on a different commission, they have to resign from their current seat. Some agencies have employment prohibitions. So are members allowed to be employees of the agency? For Chula Vista, typically we don't have any anyone who can be an employee and serve on our board or commission, although there are a couple of seats where the seat is actually intended for a city employee. And then youth participants. So some agencies allow youth to sit on their commissions. And this is an area I'm really interested in, and I want to hear from you if you have seats on your regular boards and commissions for youth participants, anyone under 18. And I'm not talking about like a youth commission or a youth advisory commission, but I'm talking about, you know, your Parks and Recreation Commission, if you have a youth participant sit, and if so, are they allowed to vote or not? Deborah's saying Parks and Recreation, no youth seats. We don't have any youth seats, but I think it's a really intriguing idea. I think it's a great way to get youth involved in our city processes. I think it's a really great learning opportunity for them. So that's something that I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a while. Oh, Community Services and Environmental Commission, there's a non-voting youth member. I think that's great. Student position on Parks and Rec. I love that. Okay, well, I may be reaching out to you later to find out more about that. And then finally, we have ex officio members. So these are members who they are members by virtue of some other office or position that they hold. So they may or may not be voting members depending on the rules of your agency. In Chula Vista, ex officio members are appointed because of a particular background or experience that they have. And they're not required to be registered voters, but they are subject to term limits. And that's something that changed at least in my time here, not too long ago, where they didn't used to be subject to term limits, but now they are. Also in our agency, ex officio members are not entitled to vote. So an example of that is our mobile home rent review. That's our independent review of disputes over rent increases in mobile home parks. We have 2 ex officio seats on that commission. One of them has to be a tenant in a mobile home park, and the other one has to be an owner in a mobile home park. And so those 2 represent these different interests, and they provide a different perspective, but they're not able to vote on any matters that come before that commission. Oh, great. Anthony's saying that the presentation and handout materials are now posted on the conference website, clerksrock.com. So if you would like to download that, and I'll talk through here what the different attachments are that I provided for you as well. So a big part of overseeing boards and commissions is managing applications. Especially when you have 23 boards and commissions and a lot of people, we hope a lot of people who are interested in serving. So the first one is acceptance. So you can accept applications ongoing. Some agencies accept them annually. Some only accept them when a vacancy occurs. You'll want to find the right process for your agency, depending on what that oversight looks like, how much time, staff time it takes, and what kind of resources you have available to you. What we found for us is that we accept applications ongoing and we keep them on file for 1 year. We used to keep them on file for 2 years, but we decided that was really too long for us because typically after a year and a half, the applicant was no longer interested or no longer available if they hadn't already been seated on a commission. Sometimes they've moved, sometimes they changed their information. And so it was really an administrative burden to have to go back and, oh, okay, your application's a year and a half old. Now can you update it and give us a new application? It just turns into more records and more kind of going back and forth. So we found that a year has really been a good kind of middle ground where we can tell people, if you're interested in a board or commission, even if there's no vacancy, go and apply for it and we'll keep your application on file for a year. So that way, if we have any openings come up, any vacancies within that year, we know who might be interested in it. And then, at the time that they're interested in it, they can actually go and apply. So they don't have to wait until, a certain time or wait until there's a vacancy and try and, make sure that they're aware that there's a vacancy happening. The exception to that is our Youth Action Council. Our Youth Action Council only serves 1 year, and they apply at the beginning of the school year. So they serve basically from September to June. So we only take applications for them at the beginning of the year. Some of the components in your applications are your applications can either be standard for all boards and commissions, or they can be specific. Do you require a resume? And what other requirements do you have? So what works really well for us, having so many boards and commissions, is we do have a standard set of basic information. And then the applications are each customized from there for each board or commission. So the questions included are for people to tell us which seats they qualify for. So if it's a seat where it requires a design professional, they tell us if they think they qualify as a design professional. Applications also include disqualifying questions, which help with screening, just like in any HR process if you're applying for employment. So are you a registered voter or are you a qualified elector? For Board of Ethics, we have a disqualifier if they have certain conflicts of interest that would prevent them from serving. So they have to tell us if they have any conflicts of interest, and we list them there on the application so they can decide for themselves whether or not they do. And that makes it really easy for us. So if we're going down, we're receiving applications and going down the list, no, they're not a qualified elector. Oh, they don't live in Chula Vista. That's an easy thing that from an administrative perspective, we can contact the person and say, you don't qualify because of this and that. Maybe you checked it by accident. Maybe that's, really your situation. We have a portion of our city that was annexed into the city. It's called Bonita. And there's part of Bonita that's within the city of Chula Vista limits. And then there's part of Bonita that's in the county. And so there's some confusion of people, whether they actually even live within city limits sometimes. We do require resumes for certain boards and commissions, specifically those that require a specific experience or qualifications. And then for some commissions, we also require a letter of reference. So that's like for Planning Commission. Alice is saying that they require a live scan background check, and do other cities do that? So I'll actually get to that. We don't do background checks. And it's an interesting topic for us because we do live scan background checks on all of our volunteers, but not on our board and commission members. So that's a can I haven't opened yet, but we may go that direction in the future. Applications can also be used as a really great tool to set expectations for the commissions. It's just like someone who's applying for a job. You want to make sure that they know what's expected of them so that they can make an informed decision about whether or not they think that that commission is the right fit for them. So in Chula Vista, applicants have to acknowledge, they have to check a box, yes or no, if they review the meeting schedule for the commission. Sometimes people apply for a board or commission not realizing it meets on Wednesday nights and they have something else on Wednesday nights. So we go through the whole process of getting them appointed and they're like, oh, I can't meet on Wednesday nights. And it's not something, that we change all the time. We also have them now acknowledge, this is kind of a newer acknowledgement, that they are required to file a Form 700 if that's required for their particular board or commission. Because we've also had people who go all the way through the appointment process, they get appointed and they're like, wait a second, I have to tell you all this about myself and about all the stocks that I hold and about all the properties that I own. I don't want to put all my information out there, and they'll actually decide not to serve because they're required to file a Form 700. So we have them acknowledge that, and then they have a heads up when we're asking them for it, what that is and what they need to disclose. We also have them acknowledge that they've reviewed the responsibilities of the board or commission and that they're familiar with them. And we take applications on a form on our website, so they can't actually submit the application without going through all of these acknowledgements. Dina says, and then they still check the box, even though they know it'll be a challenge to make the meetings. Yes. But we did ask them and give them an opportunity to not do that. But yes, I'm with you. The screening and evaluation of applications. So the clerk team does a basic screening of applications. Registered voter, do they live in the city? Did they include their required documents, a resume or whatever it is? Beyond the basic screening, we feel that it's important to leave it up to the council or whoever is going to make that nomination to decide if they meet the required experience qualifications. So if they check the box saying, yes, I'm an architect and here's my resume, and there's nothing about being an architect on the resume or not, it's not, the clerk doesn't take that on, and the clerk team doesn't take that on as far as deciding whether or not they meet that experience qualification. So we leave that up to the nominating authority to make that decision. And then the city council ratifies all nominations. And so they also receive the application and any information. And then as far as advertising, for applicants, we use the city website, we use social media, both the city social media and the council members will post on their own social media accounts. We do press releases. We have some neighborhood magazines that we have a partnership with them, which has turned out to be really great, and they've helped us with publishing vacancies. Sometimes we'll use our seated members and say, hey, we have a vacancy on this commission. Our application is open. If you know other people who might be interested, please have them apply. We'll also recruit through staff. So some have connections with, different types of groups like the Healthy Chula Vista Advisory Commission. They have contacts with the county, and they have contacts with other kind of similarly focused organizations. And I'm interested, what other ways do you advertise? or do you use for, you know, to find more people to apply for your boards and commissions? Because with 23 boards and commissions, that's a lot of seats to fill. And so we're always looking for ways, how else can we get the word out to people? Oh, the city channel, social media, local public access channel. Yeah, social media is very effective. You're right. Chamber of Commerce e-blast. Oh, I like that. Press release, school e-tree. HOAs, that's a great one. An editorial article in the newspaper. Next door. Sherry says we rely on council members to work their contacts. Yes, we do too. Oh, mail postcards. I like that. Oh, announce openings before city council meetings. That's a great idea. In utility bill inserts. That's a really good one, June. We have, we include things in utility bill inserts as typically related to our environmental services, but maybe we'll have to jump on that. So this is also from the 2017 survey that I did, where I asked a number of questions. One of them was, how long do you keep applications for consideration? Not for retention purposes, but to use in filling vacancies. So the kind of two top answers were either 1 year or 2 years. Other agencies kept them for different amounts of times. And whether or not a resume is required. Only 8% said yes, 33% no, and 58% said optional. Applicant screening. So we can do background checks. That question was just asked about doing the live scan, verification of residency, voter registration. So the survey says on that one that, now this was a smaller response. There are only 32 people who responded to my question about this in 2020, but 65% said that they verify registration for all boards and commissions, either by calling the ROV. Some of you were able to look it up online, which sounded so lovely because we can't do that. So we have to call on each one. Some said for some boards and commissions, and 30% said that it wasn't a requirement for them. So let's talk a little bit about appointment processes. So you have unlimited options for appointment processes. Really the key here is that you find processes that make sense for your agency and for the board and commission. And just because the appointment processes are set right now doesn't mean that you can't change them. So in anything that I do, I look for the thing that gives me a headache and drives me crazy. And then I start looking for ways, you know, how can we fix this? How can we change this? How can we make it easier? So you can have full city council interviews. You can have it where the mayor makes a nomination and then the council ratifies that nomination. You can have it where a certain council seat or a council district makes the nomination. You can have some other nominating authority that makes the nomination, or you can do something else. What the clerk said in 2017, this is the survey that had 84 people responding, was as far as variation in the process, almost 80% said that they use the same appointment process for all of their boards and commissions. It varies by board and commission. 12% said that it may be different for boards and commission for different boards and commissions, and 10% said they did something else. And then as far as interviews being required, 51% said, I'm sorry, this is interviews being required for reappointments, not for the initial appointment. 51% said that interviews were required for reappointments. 27% said sometimes, 22% said no. We fall in the 27%. Sometimes we require interviews, sometimes we don't. Depends on the board or commission and the seat. So here's some examples of our appointment processes. For our Civil Service Commission, we have 5 seats on that commission. So 2 of our seats are nominated by the mayor. 2 of the seats are nominated by members of the classified employees. So those are by, you know, the bargaining groups. And 1 seat is nominated by the 4 people who are already seated. And so you can see here that ours vary by seat how the individuals are appointed. And when I say other nominating authority, I'm talking about like the classified employees. They're not the commission, they're not the city council or a council member who's making the nomination. It's somebody outside of the council. So in this case, it's actually the classified employees who provide the city council with a list of 4 people that they are nominating, and then the council chooses from among those 4. Planning Commission is one of our full city council interviews commission. So the full council decides who they want to interview and then selects members as a group. For our Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee, Measure P was a half-cent sales tax that we put into place a number of years ago, and we have this oversight committee to oversee how those funds are used. So 4 of the seats are filled, one by each council district. So Council District 1 gets to nominate 1, Council District 2 nominates 1, Council District 3 nominates 1, District 4 nominates 1. 1 seat is nominated by the mayor, and then 11 seats are nominated by various nominating authorities. So on this particular commission, the nominating authorities include like the San Diego Taxpayers Association, the Parks and Recreation Commission selects someone and nominates them for appointment to the council, or the Chamber of Commerce nominates people for a council. Yes, Maria, it is complicated. I agree. But the point is that it really works for these different boards and commissions. They're formed for different reasons. Like for the Civil Service Commission, you can see here by the way that the commissioners are nominated, that they're trying to be fair and represent different interests. So, you know, the mayor is sort of representing the city's interests. The nominations by the classified employees is to represent the employee perspective. And then the 5th seat is kind of the tiebreaker. So it's not selected by either one of those groups. It's selected by the people who are already sitting there. So Measure P does have 16 seats. That's not a typo. This is an example that you can learn from me of what not to do. Not only does it have so many seats that it makes it really difficult to manage, because getting 16 people together on the same day at the same time, along with all of our staff, is really difficult, but it's also difficult for them to manage themselves as a group. So I get why there's so many different nominating authorities, and Measure P, I don't want to say it was a political strategy, but when the city was trying to have this half-cent sales tax approved, one of the things that they had promised the community was independent oversight, and this is what the result is. So for Exhibit 1 that is on that Clerk's Rock page, I've shared with you our reference and appointment type resource. So this is how we keep track of all 23 boards and commissions, which ones follow which appointment types, and so on and so forth. It is complicated. We look at that a lot. And that actually didn't exist before I came into this office. I'm like, I don't know how you keep all these things in your head, because they just don't stick in my head. So I want to give you a little case study on streamlining appointment processes. With 23 boards and commissions and more than 6 different appointment processes, we're continuously evaluating how we're doing things. We're looking for opportunities to streamline. We're looking for opportunities to make things easier. As you can imagine, it takes an incredible amount of staff time to fill vacancies. So in addition to that, some of these processes have a really long turnaround time. So that leaves vacancies on commissions for months by the time, especially for the full council appointment process, where the item goes to council and council we have to set up a meeting for council to do the interviews and for the person to get appointed. You know, it can take a long time. It's by far our most time-intensive appointment process. And kind of a little more detail on the steps is we collect all the applications, we take all of the applications to a city council meeting as a city council item, an action item, and the council in public nominates who they want to interview for the seat. So anyone who receives 2 or more nominations to be interviewed is invited to come back to a special meeting to have the interviews take place. So then we hold a special meeting on a separate day and time. Sometimes there's 2 meetings, sometimes there's more, depending on how many vacancies we have. When the Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee started with 16 applicants, I think we had 2 or 3 days of interviews for those, just because there were so many applicants and so many seats. And then at the end of the interviews, the council deliberates at that meeting and they select who they want to fill for each vacancy. So we used to have 37 seats that were filled this way of all of our boards and commissions. I don't say it by board or commission because you saw, like with Civil Service Commission, you know, there's 3 different appointment types for that one commission. So of all 23 boards and commissions, 37 of the seats were filled in that way. And sometimes when we were lucky, or unlucky really, a commissioner would be interested, a commissioner who was already seated on a commission would want to serve on a different commission. So they would go through the whole process. They'd go through this full council interview process. They would be selected to, you know, serve on the planning commission or whatever the other commission was. And then they would create a vacancy on their old commission, because you can't serve on 2 at the same time. And then their old commission would also require full council interviews. And so we were just starting this process over and over and over and over again. And so there's definitely room for improvement here. So the challenge with changing this process is, you know, we have to kind of start thinking like the public and like the member of the city council. What are they going to say about, you know, no longer having the full council interview each person to fill the seats? Denise is asking who performs the interviews. It's the full city council. So we have the city council meet in a small conference room. It's still open to the public. It's not a regular, it's a special city council meeting, but it's open to the public for them to come in. It'll be held on a different night than our regular council meetings. And it's the 5 council members sitting around the table with the city attorney and myself, and typically another person from my staff. And we bring in the applicants, and the 5-member city council will ask them questions and then decide who they want to appoint. So getting back to the challenge of changing this process. So this process was typically applied to the more prestigious boards and commissions. So as I mentioned before, our planning commission still has this process. Some commissions were assigned this process to kind of raise their visibility and raise their importance. It's important for the council to have meaningful interviews, and they liked participating in the process. That was one of our challenges. And neither the public nor the city council want to let a single member of the council select everyone who's going to serve on the boards and commissions. So they don't want, you know, the mayor to be the one who's doing all the interviews herself and making all of the nominations herself. And while we have a fantastic mayor, and I think it would be perfectly fine with the mayor that we have now, who knows who's going to come in the future and who knows how things are going to change. And so those were some of the challenges that we were kind of set with. So bottom line was we had to come up with something that was appeasing to everyone, and still allowed the council members to continue to participate in a meaningful way, but that was more efficient than the way that we were doing it. So solution, what we really wanted to do, our initial goal was to find other appointment processes that were easier than this full council interview for all of the commissions except for the planning commission. We knew that that one was a non-starter. No one's gonna be willing to step out of the planning commission appointment process. So we did a lot of research on what other appointment types are their agencies using. We particularly focused on district selection or district representation. We had recently moved to council districts, and so our appointment processes hadn't been changed to reflect that at all. We involved the liaisons to the commissions to see how the changes might impact them or what input they had. Sometimes the staff to the commission were the ones who were pushing for the full council interviews because they want to elevate the status of their commissions. So ultimately, we were able to change the appointment processes for all but 2 of our commissions, the planning and the GMOC, so that they no longer required full council interviews. A lot of the new processes assigned certain seats to be nominated by a single council member, and then the mayor and the full council would ratify those appointments. The benefits are that we're able to fill the seats much more quickly. All we do is we receive the application, we send it to the mayor's staff. Mayor's staff helps her with conducting the interviews and deciding who she wants to appoint. And then we add that as an item to our council agendas. We took the opportunity throughout this process, since we were making some major changes to our general rules for boards and commissions, to look for opportunities to have district representation better reflected throughout our board and commission seats. And we calculated the savings at being about $80,000 in staff time just to fill each of those seats once. I mean, it's an incredible amount of money, which, you know, would happen at least every 8 years, but I would say probably within 2 years, we would have filled each of the seats twice on average. So far so good. Everything's been going pretty well. People seem to be happy with the new appointments and with the new appointment process. It's much more streamlined. It's much faster to have people appointed to boards and commissions. And it's saving us from having to hold all of those special city council meetings. So it was really a big win for us. And we're right at 11 o'clock, and now is a great time to take just a very short break. If you want to stand up for a minute, if you need to take a comfort break, go grab some water. So let's take 5 minutes. We'll come back at 11:05 and we'll get started in the second part of the presentation. All right, we're just about ready to get started again. Okay, it's 11:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. Maria is asking about the handouts for the session. The Dropbox link isn't working. You don't need to have the handouts during the presentation. I'll be showing them to you and I'll tell you what they are and how we use them. And then, so if you don't have access to them right this second, don't worry about it. But do follow up if you're not able to get them either with me or with the CCAC, and we'll make sure that we get those to you one way or the other. I did want to point out, I was looking through the chat and I see Patrice is saying that for the last 3 years, they've moved to an appointment subcommittee model to conduct the interviews, which is 2 council members, the mayor or their designee, and then the assigned council member or liaison to that commission. They make a recommendation to the full council who votes on it under consent. The department head overseeing that commission also sits as an advisor to the appointment subcommittee. So that's another great option. And really it's about finding something that works for your organization, that works for the size of your organization. You know, 23 boards and commissions is a lot. It may be a lot more commissions than you have. But the other thing is even if it doesn't apply to you, what I've learned in my professional career is it's really great to know what options are out there. Sometimes if you're going to change organizations, you know, you may be moving to a bigger organization or a smaller organization. And so just kind of keeping an eye out on what's on there and or what's out there as far as options are for you. And I do that with everything. I do that with software. I do that with processes. I do that with resources, just to kind of, you know, have an eye on what's out there and how you can make changes in your agency for the better, or that you can use in your future positions. All right, so now that we have the new commissioners selected, let's talk a little bit about onboarding. In Chula Vista with 23 boards and commissions, there's no way that the clerk's staff could staff all of the boards and commissions. So we have secretaries and liaisons from different departments who support each board and commission. And kind of the division of responsibilities for us is the clerk supports the member and their membership. So we support their terms, their training that they're required, any reappointments. And then the secretary and the staff liaison support the member as being a part of the board. So they bring them up to date on any projects that the board or commission has been working on, past minutes, upcoming meetings, things like that. So as far as their individual membership goes, it's important to let them know what their term is. The way that our terms work is that the term stays with the seat, not with an individual. So if an individual is appointed to a term and they serve 2 years of their 4-year term, the new person coming in to fill that vacancy is just going to serve the remaining 2 years of that term, and then they could potentially be eligible to be reappointed to a second term. So we let them know what their term is, what actions they need to take. So scheduling their oath, filing their Form 700, completing ethics training. We tell them who their commission secretary is and what their contact information is so that they know who they can reach out to for questions about their board or commission. And then we let them know the general rules for all board and commission members. And then as far as onboarding and orientation to the board or commission, that's the commission secretaries or staff who reach out to them and tell them when their next meeting is, what the recent topics are, how they can be prepared, so where they can find past minutes and meeting videos and things like that, so that they can, kind of hit the ground running when they jump on their new board or commission. Some of you may have some really fancy software products that produces welcome letters for you. We don't, even with 23 boards and commissions. And so if you don't either, a simple Word document will suffice. You can take it up a notch by using mail merge. We use that regularly, and that really helps with, making sure that the data going out is in the right place. Takes a lot less time than having to, go through a letter and type in the information, make sure we spell everyone's name right. So Exhibit 2 that I provided for you is our welcome letter for new members. It provides the new commissioner with a welcome and kind of gratitude message for serving, the date that their oath of office was scheduled, if they are required to file a Form 700, what that deadline is. We also request that they provide their property holdings for commissions like the Planning Commission. So if their commission is going to consider anything related to land use, then their property holdings would be necessary so we can help identify any conflicts. And then, like I said, the name and contact information for their board or commission secretary. So you can see on the screen here, this is a snapshot of kind of the first page. You can find the whole letter that we provide in Exhibit 2. We have reminders to ourselves, which is up there in the turquoise. I don't know if you figured out yet what my favorite color is, but if you just keep an eye on the presentation, you might be able to identify it. But just kind of notes or reminders to us that we delete before we send it out. But this way we make sure that it goes out the same way every time to each commissioner. So along with the welcome letter, we attach an orientation packet that has all of the general rules for boards and commissions. Here's kind of what the table of contents is, so you can see what's included there. I've given you the full orientation packet that we give people as Exhibit 3. I will say this orientation packet could use some help. It's not real exciting to read. It doesn't have any, nice pictures in it. It's something that's, kind of on my to-do list to change moving forward, or, kind of give it a little bit of a facelift. But at least it includes the information for them about their terms, about what the chairperson's responsibilities are, conflicts of interest, meeting cancellations, appointments of subcommittees, compensation and expenditures, bylaws, attendance, that's a big one, vacancies, mandatory training sessions. So this answers a lot of the basic information that boards and commission members need when they're first starting to serve on a board or a commission. Attendance is a big one. Yes, it is. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So here's one of my pro tips for you as standard work. And I know you're probably all so used to having your checklists and your procedure manuals. These can go by a ton of different names. In Chula Vista, we refer to it as standard work, and that's an agency-wide term. So I've provided you with a sample of our new board and commission member appointment checklist as Exhibit 4. So here's kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. Some of the items on our checklist include adding the member to our database. We track and manage all of our members in an Access or a SQL database that was built by our IT department, although we're moving to a new software that we're really excited about to manage all of our boards and commissions. This also includes in our checklist is filing their application, adding their oath to an upcoming agenda, asking the mayor's staff to prepare their certificate of appointment. Oh, this is so helpful, new clerk and going through recruitment. Great, I'm glad that you find it helpful. I always find it helpful when people give me the, not only the verbal kind of, here's how you do it, but also here's what I use to actually do it on a day-to-day basis. So I really hope that all these attachments are helpful for you. And just a little plug, I'm going to be back in July with a training with my colleague Phil Skolick, who I think is with us today as well. And we're going to go into more depth on writing standard work and improving your processes. As Trude mentioned in my introduction, process improvement has been one of the main themes in my career that I've taken with me through every position that I've been in since I was 18 years old. And so it started with looking at different processes. How can we improve them? How can we make them more efficient? How can we cut out steps? To creating standard work of making sure that everyone is doing it the same way every time they do it. It's really great for cross-training and things like that. So if you're not already registered for that, it's going to be July 22nd and 23rd. And registration, I believe, is now open on the CCAC website. The registration had been full, but we've increased capacity. So there are still a few seats available. So if you're interested, I'd say register ASAP. So vacancies. So the causes for vacancy, we'll talk about voluntary resignation, other causes. The considerations that you'll want to keep in mind are the effective date of that the seat actually becomes vacant, any action that may be required by the council, and any notification that would be required to the member. So in addition to resignations, we spell out reasons for involuntary vacancies. We also call that inviting people to find their happiness elsewhere. That came from a Disney management training. So you should have specific reasons spelled out in your policies. And that way you're ensuring that the same standards apply to everyone and that everyone knows what those standards are. It's when you start getting into making discretionary choices about who's going to be asked to leave a commission and when they're not going to be asked to leave a commission. If you don't have that written down in a policy, it does make it very difficult and potentially opens your agency up to liability and accusations that somebody was unfairly terminated from their position. So in Chula Vista, we have different vacancy types. One of them is a charter mandated vacancy. That would be an absence from 3 regular meetings consecutively. So if somebody is absent from 3 regular meetings consecutively, they're automatically terminated unless their absences were excused. If someone is convicted of a felony or a crime involving moral turpitude, then they're also no longer eligible to serve on a board or commission. So clarifying when the member stopped serving and when the actual effective date of the vacancy was is something that we have recently done some changes to in our municipal code, because it wasn't really clear in our rules when the member stopped serving and when the date of the vacancy was effective. And that may not seem like a big difference, but if you think about it, especially for this first one, for the charter mandate, if someone's convicted of a felony, we don't want them to continue serving for another 2 or 3 weeks until the council can meet to declare their vacancy. So in this case, the member stops serving at the time of the occurrence of the vacancy. So if they're convicted of a felony, they're no longer eligible to serve on the commission, even though they're technically still on the commission until the council deems the seat vacant. They're not allowed to serve during that period of time. Council action is required for that one. For city employment, if a member becomes a paid employee of the city, they immediately stop serving on the board or commission, and the effective date of the vacancy is the date that they were hired. And council action's not required on that one any longer, because we actually have had a number of our board and commission members become employees of the city, and it was just kind of a long process where it's obvious they can't continue to serve if that seat doesn't allow them to serve as an employee. And then we have our reasons for removal for cause. So the reasons that someone can be removed for cause is any absence from more than 50% of meetings in a fiscal year, whether or not they were excused from those meetings. And this no longer says regular meetings. This is 50% of the meetings, of any meetings that were held during the fiscal year. What we were finding was, this is relatively new, what we were finding is that people wouldn't be absent from 3 regular meetings consecutively because the commission would hold a special meeting in between. Maybe they would show up to that one, or maybe they would miss all the meetings, but the commission had held a few special meetings. So it didn't actually be 3 regular meetings consecutively that they had missed. So over a period of 5 meetings, 3 of them are regular, 2 of them are special. They only have to attend 1 of the 5 in order to not fall under that charter mandated vacancy. So this was kind of an area that helped sort of open up our ability to handle that situation. The second one is unavailability or conduct that interferes with the commission's ability to conduct its business. We've had commissioners where they don't actually miss 50% of the meetings. They do end up being at some of the meetings, but they're not telling us when they can't come to meetings. Or they're part of the group of people who couldn't come to a meeting that caused a failure to have a quorum, which ended up the meeting not happening. So if the meeting had happened, technically they would have been absent from the meeting, but the meeting didn't happen because we didn't have a quorum. And so that interferes with the commission's ability to conduct its business. We've also had, it's very rare, but we've had a couple of commissioners who, I don't know whether or not they actually understood their role, but they definitely weren't operating in their role as a commissioner. So maybe they were, you know, going out and providing information to the community that wasn't necessarily accurate, or they weren't, you know, really reflecting the city as they should have been. So this kind of gives us a little bit of an option too, if we feel like this should apply to someone. And of course, we always communicate with our members. We're going to talk about that in a minute. It's really important that you communicate with them, because these are all volunteers. You know, they're all people who want to volunteer their time. Typically, they are very passionate about what they do and how they participate. So you always have to consider that kind of human aspect of things as well. Another reason that somebody can be removed for cause is failure to attend mandatory training. This comes into play a lot of times with our ethics training, that members aren't up to date on their ethics training. Any violation of city policies or regulations that are subject to mandatory training. So if they violated city policies related to ethics, or we don't do sexual harassment training, but if we did and they violated any of those policies or regulations, then they could be subject to removal for cause. And then finally is our violation of the code of ethics. So their members stop serving at the time that council takes action, and then the effective date is the council's declaration of the vacancy, and council action is required for any removal for cause. So for removal for cause, in our city, the mayor is responsible for making recommendations for removal for cause, except for violation of ethics, which we have a board of ethics that handles that. So we work with the mayor's office annually to review attendance reports and any reports of misconduct. And then before the mayor makes a recommendation to the city council for removal for cause, the board and commission, staff liaison, the nominating authority, if there is one, the city attorney and I are all consulted as part of that recommendation. And then also we're always in touch with the board and commission members so that they know what's going on. You know, it's, we wouldn't be doing our job right if they were surprised that they just got removed for attendance issues and they had no idea that that was happening. So it's really important to communicate with the members throughout the process so that they're aware of what's going on. We had a prior process where the mayor and the deputy mayor would do this annual review of people's attendance, and they would make the recommendation to council. But our attorneys opined that the mayor and the deputy mayor constituted a standing committee, which then had to abide by the Brown Act, which then required us to notice all the meetings and do agendas and do minutes and all of that for, you know, a quick meeting every once a year or twice a year to make these decisions. So we were able to streamline that and change it to the mayor, and then the mayor consults with whoever nominated the person for that seat. So if it's a council district seat, they have to the mayor has to touch base with that council district to let them know what the situation is. Sometimes, you know, they know the member and they can say, hey, what's going on? Are you having, you know, is this a temporary situation that you're in where you expect your attendance to be able to be better, or whatever the situation is. So the purpose of the MADI Act, which many of you probably know, is to ensure that members have access to information, members of the public have access to information regarding board and commission vacancies, so that there's a lot more people who are aware that there are vacancies and that people have an opportunity to apply for those boards and commissions. So there's two parts to the MADI Act. One is the local appointments list, which most of you, I'm I'm sure are aware of and do, but on or before December 31st of each year, that has to be posted. It's a list of all the terms that expire in that upcoming calendar year. It includes the name of the incumbent, the date of the appointment, the date the term expires, and then qualifications for the position. A list of all of the boards, commissions, committees, and qualifications. And then this has to be either posted online or posted at your public library that has the largest service population within your jurisdiction. The unscheduled vacancy notices are posted when there's an unscheduled vacancy. So somebody resigns, someone's terminated. This is also posted online or at the public library. The timing of filling the vacancy, the timing of posting the notice, it can't be more earlier than 20 days before the vacancy and not later than 20 days after the vacancy. And then for filling the vacancy, oops, I'm not sure how I did that. After filling the vacancy, excuse me, I'm sorry. After the notice is posted, you can't fill the vacancy for at least 10 working days. So you want to make sure that you keep in mind working days, because I know a lot of our other days are over weekends or over holidays. This is 10 working days. In an emergency, a position can be filled in the meantime, but the person's only serving in an acting capacity until that final appointment. And let me see. I know I saw a couple of questions here. One is, do we have to publish the MATI Act notice twice? We do, but no one can tell me why. I'm not aware of any requirement to post the MATI Act notice twice. We post our local appointments list typically we post it in November, December timeframe. We leave it up posted all year. We have it actually posted outside and on our website. And then the unscheduled vacancy notice we have posted until after the posting requirement is met. Oh, Brandy's saying that they keep theirs up all year and update it as their roster changes throughout the year. We don't update ours. I'm not aware of a requirement that you update yours, but definitely check with your attorney. As exhibits 5 and 6 that are available to you as part of this presentation, I've included our local appointments list and our unscheduled vacancy notice. I know yours may look different, but that's how we do it. So if that kind of sparks you to think about yours in a different way. Nova is asking, does advertising a vacancy in the newspaper and social media count as an unscheduled vacancy notice, or do we have to post the notice on our agenda board? So the MATI Act says that you have to post your notice online or at your public library, and it has to be at the library with the largest service population in your jurisdiction. So you can check with your attorney about that for sure and have them give you an official answer on that, but that's what we do. Is it required to be published? We don't publish ours. We only post ours online. We do post it on our agenda board as well. But we don't publish ours. Let's see. So someone's question about what does MATI stand for. I believe that MATI was the name of the legislator who proposed this legislation, and that's why it's called the MATI Act. It's in Government Code Section 54970. Yes, it would be a long and expensive newspaper ad in Chula Vista. You're right. State Senator, thank you. Okay, addressing attendance issues. So we've talked about this a little bit. So, like I said, most commissioners are volunteers who are very passionate about the commissions they serve on. Some of them have ulterior motives. They know that it's a stepping stone to city council, and maybe that's one of their steps that they want to go in their career, and so they want to start getting involved with the city. So while it's important to have continuing to consider that human aspect, and people have real things happen in their lives. Last year was an extremely tough year for a lot of people, and some people have, you know, short-term issues where it's maybe 6 months or a year that, you know, they're not able to make all of the meetings. And so they have very poor attendance, but they expect that situation to be resolved. And that way they can continue, or they can go back to attending their meetings. But having a game plan to address the attendance issues makes that situation much easier to walk through. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a policy on how you address attendance issues, you know, what kind of attendance is required. Make sure that you're setting those expectations with your commissioners. We do that by having them acknowledge that they know what the meeting schedule is when they apply for the commission. During their orientation, we send them our board and commission general rules. So through that, we're also setting those expectations of, here's how much, you know, we need you to serve on this board or commission. They provide valuable input, and without, you know, with having people missing, it really impacts the commission's ability to do its work. Communicating with members is very important. Like I said, nobody should be surprised in a situation where a commissioner is asked to leave because of their attendance issues. We should be communicating with them throughout the process. And for the most part, you know, commissioners, what I found is that commissioners understand. If we, you know, call and say, hey, we've noticed that you've missed a lot of these board and commission meetings. You know, what's going on? And they go, oh, I'm so busy at work right now and I can't get away. And, you know, things are just really busy for me right now. We say, well, you know, we really need someone to be sitting in the seat, and so that the commission can continue to do its work. We really value your participation in the group. But if you're not able to continue participate, maybe you think about resigning for now and coming back at a later time when you have more availability. So that's been pretty effective. So that we don't have to go through a whole formal process, because that can be really embarrassing for people. And then, like I said, make sure that you follow a standard process each time. And that way there's no accusations of somebody not being treated fairly, or whatever the case is. So first, have a policy. This is Chula Vista's policy on excused absences. So if a member misses 3 regular meetings consecutively, unless they're excused, the seat's deemed vacant. So as I mentioned before, these are the reasons why a member can be absent, and why the commission can approve a member's absence. And this is in our municipal code. You may have yours in a municipal code, you may have yours in a council policy, you may have yours in administrative policy, but the point is, have a policy. That way you have something to fall back on. So the reasons that a commissioner can be excused for an absence is the illness of the member, or a member of their family, or a personal friend of theirs, business commitment of the member that interferes with their attendance at a meeting, a previously scheduled vacation, which notice was provided to the board or commission in advance of the meeting, attendance of the member at a funeral or religious service or ceremony or wedding or other kind of similarly significant event, an unexpected emergency situation that prohibits the member's attendance, or another reason for which the member has given notice to the secretary at least 7 days in advance. And this was recently changed as well. We kind of tweaked it a little bit over the years to, you know, provide a reasonable way for people to be excused for absences, but also not excusing absences if the person forgot about the meeting, or if they, you know, decided had something else to do at the last minute, or if they're not responding to the secretary, you know, about whether or not they're able to attend, and then they just don't show up. So, oops, sorry about that. So having a list of excused absence reasons has been important to us, and it's been a really great thing for us to fall back on. Exhibit 7 that I've provided for you is a request for excused absence form that we have our commissioners use, and either they can fill it out or the secretary can fill it out. And it's basically check one of these 6 reasons that's in the municipal code of why you are asking for your absence to be excused. Or they check a box saying, it doesn't fall under any of those reasons, so I know my absence is not going to be excused. And that's why you get three unexcused absences. You know, sometimes you do forget, sometimes something does happen and you can't make the meeting at the last minute and you haven't given notice or whatever it is. And so the Exhibit 7, that request for excused absence form, that's what's attached to the agenda, along with their the item on the agenda for the commission to approve their absence or not approve their excused absence. And it's really important here also, especially when it comes to medical things, people don't have to provide details. So we don't ask them the specifics. Who in your family was sick? What were you sick with? You know, whatever it is, we don't want to get into the personal reasons. You tell me that a member of your family was sick, or, you know, you tell me that you had this business commitment. We leave it at that. You're the one who's certifying that that's what happened. We don't need to get into all the details about it. Same thing when it comes to resignations. We've had people who want to explain their situation, understandably, you know, their wife was ill, or their wife had cancer, or whatever it is. And so they're sending us this letter resigning from their seat with all of these personal details in it. And, you know, typically our response is, this is going to become a public record. Maybe you want to just reply and say, you know, there's a family illness and I'm no longer able to serve, and just kind of leave it at that. So we always want to try and be respectful of people's personal information. So the second part is setting up expectations. Like I mentioned, we have that checkbox on the application form that they've reviewed the commission's meeting dates and times. In the orientation handbook, in the excused absence request form, we also include that information. So that way there's these kind of continuous reminders of what's allowed as far as absences go. Let's see, we make sure we communicate with members in Chula Vista. Typically that communication starts with the secretary or liaisons to the commission. The commissioners know the commission liaisons and the secretaries kind of better than they know us. So we don't feel like it's, you know, most comfortable for us to jump into that process. It's really most comfortable typically for the secretaries to, or the liaisons to reach out to someone and ask them kind of what's going on. So it kind of starts with a phone call or email communication. Then we move on to the next step, which is a formal letter that we send them saying, hey, we have some concerns about your attendance. Exhibits 8 and 9 are the standard templates that we use. We provide those to your, we provide those to our commission secretaries and liaisons so that they don't have to try and craft a letter, because it's an awkward situation. Not everybody knows exactly what to say. And that way it's the same letter going out to everyone with the same information. So that's exhibits 8 and 9 as part of this presentation. Denise is asking for the request for absence form. You have that there as exhibit number 7. So you should have access to that on the Clerk's Rock page. If you can't get to the exhibits to this presentation, let me know. I'll be happy to email them to you, or we'll find another way to get them to you. She's saying she thinks it's a great idea to relieve the board secretaries and liaisons of having to guess. Absolutely. And that's what we use it for. And we allow the secretaries to fill it out if they receive a phone call from a commissioner saying, hey, I'm going to be absent for whatever reason, or I want to ask for this excused absence. It's kind of an easy, you know, way to deal with a situation that could potentially be uncomfortable for people, but all they have to do is fill out a form and check the box and sign it. And that's it. And that kind of handles the situation with, you know, as little stress as possible. The clerk staff, myself and the other staff in our office who support the boards and commissions, we also help support these communications with the secretaries and help them kind of navigate the situation. You know, we've seen it a lot more than they have if they only have one commission, but we help the staff for 23 boards and commissions. We've seen a lot of scenarios. And so we help them kind of navigate that. We'll jump in and help with communicating with people. Sometimes we involve the mayor's staff. If a member is being considered for removal by the mayor because their attendance has been so poor, or if, you know, staff says, hey, this person has missed, you know, all these meetings but it's never 3 in a row or whatever it is, sometimes the mayor will send out a letter to people, either when she's doing her annual attendance review or throughout the year. If we say, hey, could you reach out to this person with a letter? And, you know, when you get a letter from the mayor saying your attendance is bad, you kind of either shape up or ship out. So that's been really effective for us as well. And if a member is going to be removed for cause, we always communicate that with them, and we always give them an opportunity to remove themselves, because that has to go to council, has their name on it. It's really embarrassing to have your name on the agenda saying you're being removed from a commission for cause. And so we try and reach them and allow them an opportunity to kind of step down before we go that far. And then, like I said, always follow a standard process. if it comes to the point where we are going to have a member removed for cause, it's a very rare situation, but we want to make sure that we handle it the same each time. Oh, thank you, Christina. Christina's posted a link to Exhibit 7 in the chat for you, for Denise and anyone else. All right, so training, different training that you may require. For the AB 1234 ethics training, we require that for all of our board and commission members. They're all required to do the ethics training within 1 year of when they're appointed, and then every 2 years thereafter, just like all of our staff who are required to take the ethics training. Sexual harassment training, the AB 1661, there have been some questions I've seen flying around on listserv. I pulled them together from a survey this year. There were only 22 people who responded, so this may or may not be really representative of the whole, but 36% said that yes, some of their commissions are required to take sexual harassment. It seemed like it was more kind of planning commission and sort of those bigger commissions. 36% said yes, all of their commissions are required to take the sexual harassment training. And then 27% said no, the sexual harassment training wasn't required for their members at that time. We haven't required sexual harassment training, but that's something that we're looking into. Brown Act training is also a training that you can offer your board and commission members. When for the ethics training, and you're going to hear from my city attorney next. He's actually on the docket this afternoon if you're planning on attending the afternoon session, and he'll talk more about the ethics training that we offer, but it also includes Brown Act training for our board and commission members. You can also do training for a commission as a whole, that's the roles, duties, and procedures. So remember when I was saying before that it's really important to define the role of your boards and commissions. That way you have something to fall back on when your commissioners, I don't want to say go rogue, but when they kind of go sideways in what they're doing, or they maybe don't understand exactly what the kind of what their sandbox is for them to make decisions. So just kind of as an example and sort of where this came from, the roles, duties, and procedures, by the way, I've provided to you as Exhibit 10. That's a full PowerPoint presentation that we are planning on going around and doing for all of our boards and commissions. It's myself and one of our deputy city attorneys who put that together to, we can give people information at our ethics training / Brown Act training, but if it's not specific to their commission, sometimes it doesn't really sink in. And if it's not as individualized to say, here's what your specific role is, here's what your duties are. We tell the commissioners as they come in, but they don't really have any concept of what the commission is going to be doing. So they have nothing really to compare that to. So it's kind of hard to understand the concept if they haven't started actually serving as a commission. And so our goal is to go to all of the boards and commissions periodically and just present to them about what their roles and duties are and what the procedures are, and allow them the opportunity to ask questions about that. So we had a commission who was really intent on writing a letter of support for a particular piece of legislation that they really thought was important and that they wanted to support. And that's wonderful. And I appreciate how diligent they are, and I appreciate how dedicated they are, and that they know what legislation is out there, and that they want to support it, but that's really not part of their function. Their function is to make recommendations to the city council. So if they want a letter of support to go out from the city, they could adopt a resolution recommending that the city council support this legislation, and they could potentially sign on to it if they voted to support the legislation, but it would still come from the city council, and the city council would be the ones who make that decision on whether or not they can support legislation or oppose legislation. And so it's really important for them to understand, yes, we want you to gather all the information. We want you to, take the temperature of the community. We want you to hear from community members on this legislation or this important information. And then you need to report it to city council. And then city council is going to take it a step further from there. So you can make recommendations to the city council, but you're not the one who gets to write the legislation. So I want to hear from you guys. What other kinds of training do you have other than ethics training, sexual harassment? Are there any other kind of trainings out there? Joan thinks it would be odd that some cities would only have some commissions required to take sexual harassment. Yeah, it could be an administrative thing, you know, tracking everybody's training. And so you're kind of picking the bigger commissions versus the smaller ones. Oh, primer on Public Records Act. That's great. I think we do have some information about that in the roles, duties, and procedures, but we probably could go a bit farther into that. Rebecca says that they require a commission certification class prior to applying for a commission and every 2 years after. I like that. I'd be interested in seeing what that was or what all you include in that. Clerk and CAO give an orientation for boards and commissions, covers Brown Act and roles and duties. Great. June says they send their new commissioners to the Planning Commissioners Academy through the League of California Cities. Thank you for bringing that up, June. I should have put that on this slide. I do have it included at the end for resources. We're in the process of considering trainings for chairs, parliamentary procedures, implicit bias. Those are awesome. I really like those ideas. Requirements of commissioners, Brown Act budget. Joan's asking, does anyone do DEI? Can you specify, Joan, what DEI is for everyone? And me? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Does anyone do training on that? Sexual harassment training does a bit of DEI. Great. So Form 700 filing, as I mentioned earlier, our application includes a checkbox if commissioners are required to file for Form 700. We think that's something important that they should know ahead of time before deciding if they want to apply for a board or commission. Form 700 filing is required for your planning commissioners. That's under Government Code Section 87200. Just like your city council, those ones are filed with the FPPC. And then any other members that you have designated in your agency's conflict of interest code. So I've included here a snap of our designated filers, which commissions we have. So of the 23, we have Board of Appeals and Advisors, Board of Ethics, Civil Service, Charter Review, Redistricting Commission, our Growth Management Oversight or GMOC, Historic Preservation, Mobile Home Rent Review. So those are the commissions that we require to file a Form 700. So moving on to records. These are generally the types of records that are produced by boards and commissions. This is an example of our records retention for these types of records and who is the office of record for them. Typically, if it's a permanent record in our city, we like the clerk to have a hold of that, as opposed to having other departments retain their own permanent records. So any agendas, bylaws, cancellation notices, minutes, resolutions, those are all permanent records that we have on file here in the clerk's office. So the secretaries complete the documents, whatever it is, the agenda, they once the minutes are approved, they'll print them and sign them and send them over to us as for the permanent record. We also upload them into Laserfish, our document management system, and make them available on our website so people have access to the information. For correspondence and for agenda packets, the department's responsible for keeping those, and they only have to keep them for 2 years, although especially with staff reports, sometimes those are kept longer. If they have some kind of significant research or some kind of historic value, we'll keep those longer as needed. Sorry about that, I was muted. Here are some pro tips for board and commission documents, such as your agendas, minutes, resolutions, notices. Standardizing. We had a project, this was actually my first project for the city clerk's office before I was in the city clerk's office, because I don't like to always swim in my lane. And I had a good relationship with the city clerk at the time, and she didn't mind me taking on the project to kind of make standard documents for our boards and commissions. So working with the other secretaries for boards and commissions, I was the secretary of the Civil Service Commission at the time. So working with the secretaries for the other boards and commissions, we came up with kind of a standardized agenda, which of course has some variation, you know, depending on the needs of a specific board or commission. But I came up with a standard of it so that having a standard, one, it's visually appealing to have standard looking documents throughout your agency. It makes your agency look more cohesive. It provides a seamless transition between meetings for the public. It ensures that required information isn't missing, like you didn't forget to put on public comments section or something like that on your agenda. And then there's always different needs for boards and commissions. So for our planning commission, that's probably the most unique one. They have requirements much more similar to city council than the other boards and commissions do. So they'll post environmental notices on their agendas and you know, more details than maybe some of the other commissions do, but at least we have standard format for our boards and commissions. We've also formatted the documents to be complementary to the council documents. So our agenda specifically, they have a similar look and feel, although they're not as prestigious looking as our council documents are. So it ensures that you have kind of a cohesive set of documents. People who are already familiar with the city council agenda, it makes it really easy for them to read and understand a board and commission agenda if it's similar. It also kind of keeps the board and commission staff from going rogue and coming up with whatever it is that they want to come up with that, you know, maybe doesn't really match the look and the feel of the rest of the city. I would also strongly suggest adopting a policy to direct the content, especially for meeting minutes. Our council has incorporated into our code that in the general rules for boards and commissions that only action minutes are required. So I'm sorry if you're a city that has to do verbatim or summary minutes. We found that action minutes work really well for us. That's what we use for our city council, and that's also the standard for all of our boards and commissions. So having this adopted as a policy and having it supported by the city council means that when a board or commission says, no, we want you to put in everything that I said. I want you to add this into the minutes. I want you to add that into the minutes. I want you to put in this discussion. The secretaries have something to fall back on and say, no, see, the council is the one who decides what the format of that policy is. And their policy is that we just do action minutes. But you know, we have an audio recording of the meeting, or now we have video recordings of all of our streaming video meetings. And so you always kind of have that to fall back on, one, and two, then it's standard throughout your agency so that it's similar throughout. And then you also want to periodically audit your records. So we're the office of record for most of our boards and commissions, particularly, like I mentioned, the permanent records. And we thought our commissions were doing pretty darn good until we hit COVID. And then we really started getting involved with setting up their meetings and helping them set up WebEx meetings for the members of the public to attend. And we really started looking at what records do we have? Have they been forgetting to send us minutes? And so going forward, that's going to be a standard that we have where probably once a year we'll go through and audit all the records, because it's hard for the commission secretaries. They're focused on their commission, they're focused on their meeting, they're focused on getting their work done. They may forget to check that box of, did I send it over to the clerk's office? I don't know if this is just a giant issue in Chula Vista. This is like the issue that will never die, is whether or not commissioners can have business cards. I'm not kidding you. I'm looking back in council minutes, and this discussion was going on in the 80s. And this comes up every 3 to 5 years, and it becomes this huge issue. And then it kind of goes away for a while, and then it comes back, and it like I said, it's the issue that won't die. So in a survey, we only had 25 people respond to this, but 28% said, yes, they provide business cards. 72% said, no, they don't provide business cards. I got lucky this round of this issue coming up because COVID hit, and now nobody wants business cards because they don't see anyone anyway. So maybe it's gone away for a little while. In our general rules, it's actually part of our municipal code. We don't provide commissioners with business cards. So organization and support. I know we're running short on time. I am going to go through these slides. Like you said, I've provided, tried to provide you with a lot of the resources that we use. So I'm just going to kind of explain what I've given you, and you can take it from there and feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions. So bylaws and rules of order, you may have different rules adopted in your agency. Our agency allows commissions to adopt their own bylaws. We only have one active commission, maybe two, that have their own bylaws. Our redistricting commission has its own bylaws. And then for our rules of order, you know, it's important to decide what you want to use for your boards and commissions. Make sure that they're trained and they know how to use those rules. In Chula Vista, we feel like we're really special. And so we don't use Robert's rules or Rosenberg's rules. We use our own rules that we made up that are pretty similar to Robert's rules, but they're a little different. So you want to make sure that you and your commissioners know what those are. In Chula Vista, we do allow subcommittees to be formed. You may allow subcommittees for your boards and commissions to be formed. This is from our municipal code about what the subcommittees do. And I know that there was just a question, I think this week, about subcommittees on the listserv. But our subcommittees are allowed to be formed to provide advice on any matter that's within the jurisdiction of the particular board or commission. So they're providing advice. And the role of the subcommittee is to provide expertise and advice to its establishing board or commission. Subcommittees and subcommittee members shall not advise the city council directly or speak on behalf of the board or commission without prior approval of a majority of the members of the board or commission. So it's important, if you are going to have subcommittees, that you lay those parameters out for them. What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? Another big area to watch out for is if they are required to adhere to the Brown Act. I've given you as Exhibit 11, this is kind of our quick FAQ sheet about subcommittees and what applies to them and what doesn't apply to them. When boards and commissions love making subcommittees, and the commission staff often aren't as trained in the Brown Act as we are. And so they don't know whether or not the commission or the subcommittee for the commission is required to adhere to the Brown Act. A lot of times they are. And so we created this to help them understand sort of what the impacts are of creating a subcommittee. So you can read that for some more detail. Another helpful resource that we provide is a word track for the chair. Chairs are just regular people who maybe have never run a meeting before, and they don't have, most of them don't have experience running meetings before, and they don't know what to do, and they don't want to look stupid. And so we try and put together this sample word track for them of, here's what you say, here's how you call a meeting to order, here's how, you know, here's kind of your script. And we don't necessarily modify it for every agenda. We have been recently for the teleconference meetings, but typically we don't give them a specific one for each meeting, but it's really intended just to provide them with, you know, what they can say at different parts. So this you have as Exhibit 12. So supporting secretaries and liaisons, there's a lot of ways to do that. Handbooks, standard work, templates, quick reference regulations. This next slide here, this is a picture of our intranet. You probably can't read it, but these are all the resources for our board and commission staff and secretaries. So we have a regular meeting agenda, a special meeting agenda, we have cancellation notices, we have template resolutions to change the day, time, and location of meetings. We have the attendance concern letters that I provided to you. We have standard work for agenda section descriptions, a pre and post meeting checklist. So we have all these resources available for people. We also do training and have a handbook available for secretaries and liaisons. I know this is very tiny, but this is our table of contents. So we talk about what their role is, what the clerk's role is. We talk quite a lot about the Brown Act. We talk about the standards for their minutes and their agendas and things like that. This is, the handbook is included as Exhibit 13, and I tried to give you everything in Word, so that way if you like it or you like parts of it and they work for your organization, you know, you can copy and paste and go from there. We also provide training for our secretaries and liaisons. This I've also given to you as Exhibit 13. These are, we update the training about every year, and we try and do the training annually and as we have new secretaries come on, because their jobs are really important. So we try and keep up to date on their training. Supporting public access, one of our big projects was putting out web pages for each individual board and commission. You can see here, this is a screenshot of our Board of Ethics webpage. It has the contacts for them. It has quick links to the agenda, the minutes, the meeting audio, things like that. Everything in, try and put everything in one place. This is going to be replaced with our new agenda, our new board and commission manager software, which we plan on releasing in the next couple months. So we're really excited about that. This is from that 2017 survey. I saw someone ask if I could attach the Survey Monkey to the chat. Yes, I will drop it in there. Give me just a minute though, so hang on, don't sign off quite yet. But from that survey, 87% said that they don't use board and commission management software. Only 13% said that they do, which is surprising. Joan's asking what software we're going with. We conducted an RFP and interviewed a number of companies, and we selected eScribe. This isn't an advertisement session, so I won't go into too much about it, but feel free to reach out if you want more details on eScribe. And then here are some other resources for you. So here's that Planning Commissioners Academy. Here's information about Robert's Rules of Order. The Cal Cities and the Institute for Local Government have some really, really great resources on their page. So these are just a couple of them, but there's definitely some more out there that are really interesting and helpful. And I know we're running a minute behind. That's all I have for you today. I really appreciate your time. I am glad to see a lot of you. I wish we could all see each other in person. And like I said, feel free to reach out to me. This is a huge subject. There's so much that goes on with it and so much that changes. So if you have questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out and let me know. And also all of the exhibits are on the Clerk's Rock page. So feel free to go there. You can download whatever you're interested in. If you have any trouble downloading it, let me know and I'll be happy to email those to you. And then that 2017 survey, I'm going to drop that into the chat right now. So, oops. Didn't mean to send that. Sorry, Kimberly, if I sent that to you directly. There you go. There's the 2017 survey with the questions that I had asked. So thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference. And I hope to see you all soon. I really do.